What's going on, Coaching Collective? Welcome back to call number 11. Here we go. Today we're trying something a little different. We are going to try just a free ball Q&A with the coaches. And if anybody here is on their computer and has like a screen they want to share with a certain protocol or anything like that, then we can do that as well. I can also share my screen to show some stuff. So we're just going to try it out and see how it goes. So without further ado, who wants to go first with a question?
I will go first. I had some questions lined up, and they kind of all relate to each other. So I'm sure that we can branch off some conversations off of that. But my biggest thing is since I'm looking to transfer a lot of my roster to more of like the competitive side, I'm looking a lot of like optimizing fat loss from a carb cycling standpoint, because I know that's like a pretty like preferred method for that type of thing. So my biggest questions, especially when like starting carb cycling, would be how would you look at someone and determine like this is the best carb cycle for them, like based off of their recovery performance and things like that. And then from there, when you're adjusting the carb cycle, how would you know, like, should I lower a high day or should I make low days lower, things like that. So all my questions kind of related. And then after that, also asking like when you think it's appropriate to have an entire like diet break or like a series of refeed days versus just the one, and everything kind of related to that.
Okay, so let's dive in with question number one. How to structure a carb cycle first based off of an individual. Okay, so why don't you give me the parameters of an individual? Let's just go off of a client. Describe this client to me: weight, height, body fat, muscle, not muscle.
Okay, sure. We'll do my client who just competed. How about that? Okay, so she's 140 pounds.
Okay, 140 pounds.
Yeah, very muscular. She is 5'6". What other questions? That's it?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a relative body fat percentage, that would help. If you want to just guesstimate.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably like 12 to 13. Is that reasonable?
Let's just say we're at the beginning of a prep phase for this person. Let's say she's hanging around 16% body fat. Okay.
Sure.
So let's say she's more so like 150. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. So if we're prepping somebody, and any other coach can monitor this and chime in on this, I would prefer you guys to answer these questions instead of me. So if we're going to start with any competitor, we're going to dive them into an aggressive fat loss phase. What are we going to do with protein first?
You are going to move it up?
Yes.
Or keep it the same?
How much are we going to move it up?
Depending on digestion, about as high as they can handle it.
Correct. So based off of all the current knowledge that we have and have talked about here, what do we think is a realistic place, or what do we think is a realistic equation to use to get our protein goal? What are we going to do? Does that question make sense?
Well, wouldn't you want to know, wouldn't you want to know how much they're having first? Like, I would want to know how much they're eating right now to determine how much I would want to bump it up.
Okay, that's a good question. Let's do starting macros. Let's say this athlete has worked their way up to for their off season. Okay, so they're eating 150 protein, 250 carb, 50 fat. Let's say that's what they got going on here. And now we're going to dive them into fat loss. So what can we do with protein here? What would we do? Because right now it's 1 gram per pound of body weight.
I mean, I don't know if this is the right answer, but I don't know if I would necessarily use an equation as much as I would bump it up slow. So maybe like 20, 30 more grams and see what happens, see how they respond.
Okay, I love it. So let's say we're going to have her at 170 grams of protein. Okay. Now, for me, when I do carb cycling, I typically like to keep fats pretty much the same across the board, except the high days, I may trickle them down a little bit. I'll use some of those calories for carbs. Okay. But this is a female, so I'm going to try my hardest to not keep her fats below
40 grams.
40 grams. That'd be my preferred. Okay. So you can structure carb cycling however you see fit. like we've talked about in the other videos, you can do 2 low, 1 high. You can do 3 low, 1 high. My preferred method is 3 days low, 2 days moderate, 2 days high. I found kind of the best yield return on this one. But what I'll do with this is I won't, actually, I used to, but not anymore. I won't do these in succession. I won't do 3 days, right to 2 days, right to 2 days. I'll spread them apart. So let's say 3 low days. We're going to use these on rest days, and we're going to use these on like 1 smaller body part day. So like if they have like delts and triceps, right, I'll use a lower day on that one. 2 moderate days, obviously training days, push day, pull day. 2 high days, leg days, right? It's the easiest way we can prioritize those around. So with this, let's say they're going low, low, moderate, high, low, high, moderate. Is that 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it is. So let's say that like that's pretty much what their week's going to look like. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So now it goes into what are we going to do for the low days? What are we going to do for the high days? What are we going to do for the moderate days? So I will typically try my hardest to keep their high day calories just at like where their maintenance calories are when we're starting the deficit. Does that make sense? So let's just say she's definitely not going to be maintaining this. That's like a surplus for sure. Might be more realistic to say something like this. So I'm going to probably try my hardest to keep these high days at 200 carb, and I'll probably drop fats to 40. So now we've got our high days, 170, 240. So the carbs are pretty much right where they were before we dropped into this deficit. I'm just going more off calories or anything. Moderate days, low days. So from here, I will typically reduce the carb intake by roughly 40% on moderate days. That's usually like my method. Some people might think that's a little aggressive. Some people may not. I prefer to pull it down about 40%, or I'm sorry, 40 grams from that, which is how much, what's the percentage of that? 20%. So I'm pulling it down 20%. So 20% of 200 is 40. So I'm pulling down 40 grams. So I'm gonna go 170 protein, 160 carb, 40 fat, or I'm sorry, 50 fat. Okay, so now we've got the moderate days here. Now for the low days, I'm probably gonna do the same thing again. So I'm gonna drop like an additional 20% off. So the low days are gonna be a 40% drop from the high day. Okay, so with that method, so we're gonna drop off 80 grams of carbs. Right. So low days will be 170, 120, and 50. Everybody with me so far? Subtracting 20 for the moderate, subtracting 40 for the lows. So now we're just kind of in a percentage range to play here. If digestion is slightly off here, we can also reduce protein on the high days. Yeah, low days, I'm going to prefer to keep the protein higher just so that we're staying in a positive nitrogen balance. Okay, so what was the question after this? What to pull from? Do we pull from lows, moderates, highs?
Yeah.
Okay, I will fight to keep the high days the same for as long as possible. As long as possible. So with that regard, my last thing I'm ever probably going to change are the high days. If I can keep somebody at this up until 3-4 weeks out, that's going to be pretty promising, because those days are going to have, they're going to feed more, they're going to have more energy, they're going to recover better, they're probably going to sleep better. We want those high days high for as long as possible. I'm usually going to shave off something from both the moderate and the low days at the same time. So I won't just do one or the other. I'll usually do so let's say I want to reduce, 40, or let's say we want to reduce 100 calories a week or something like that, right? That's not a huge change that needs to happen. We can reduce, you could reduce 5 grams of carbs on both days and you're going to get that. 100 calories might not have been a good method to say here, because that'd be 140 calories. Yeah, 5 times 4 is 20, times 7 days, 140 calories. So if we dropped 5 grams of carbs off of each, that'd be 140 calorie deficit. or further to the deficit. So you just got to kind of figure out how much you want to be dropping their calories per week. It's really going to depend on rate of weight loss, rate of fat loss, rate of visual differences. That's usually where I'm going to make that marker. But realistically, hunger should be up. Recovery should still be good. If recovery is not good, that's when I'll probably, well, we have to teeter the line in prep. Recovery is not going to be the best. Eventually, you're just going to be sore. Your body's just going to be run down. That's the name of the game. But when it gets to the point of that threshold where, I'll say this, I'll look at the face in check-in photos a lot. You can kind of start seeing the eyes sink in a little bit. You can start seeing the cheeks sink in a little bit. They start getting like, prep face, like death face. And that to me, if I pair that with lower energy, recovery being hindered, that's when I'm going to be able to say, okay, it's pretty much time for a diet break. I'd say a big one for me is, training intensity going down, recovery going down, and then how they're looking in their face. You usually will always see like sunken in eyes 10 times out of 10. I'll see that. So, sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I want to do diet breaks. So what I'll do for the moderate days, I will switch around carbs. I'll also switch around fats. I typically will pull fats down first. I'll typically pull fats down first up until I get to that range. I don't like them to go below 40. So let's say now they got 40s across the board. Calories are lower. Fat loss is going now from here. I can drop off 10 carb. Okay. Now we need to speed it up a little bit. Maybe I'm going to drop off 15 carb and 15 carb, right? So now we're going here. And now, low days are sub 100 grams, pretty low. We're starting to get in that red line, that red zone there. I think anything under 100 carb, we start getting red zone. But it's only 3 days a week. It's not even half of their week, right? But the lower I get this, the lower we get to the red zone as well. So now we got 2 full days in the red zone, which actually equates to 5 days of the week. So now from here, I'll go, okay, I'd rather stay out of the red zone as long as possible. So let me start taking a little bit off of the high days. So why don't we drop 20 grams of carbs off the high days? Oh, cool. Now they're dropping again. They still have decent food. Because here's the thing, when you're eating 95 carb on a low day, and then you hit a high day, you're going to feel like you're eating just about as, and you're still going to feel like you're eating a ton of food. So that's kind of how I structure my carb cycling at a point. And then honestly, you could ride this all the way in. I'll say it's really case dependent because sometimes it does just call from going like, yo, I'm going to need a whole week of low days. I'm going to need 2 whole weeks of low days. It really depends on the full context of the situation. Obviously, there's no black and white, but that's kind of how I immediately start my carb cycling. And then that's usually how I start to pull away from them as time goes on. Make sense? Cool. So now when we're looking at a diet break is kind of what I talked about when we're seeing all of those markers coming off. So a diet break, does anybody know how long a typical diet break is usually supposed to be based off the literature?
I think 2 weeks is what I thought.
Yeah, correct. Literature states, actually, I'm pretty sure the literature states in like every 6 weeks, you do a 2-week diet break, and it's supposed to be the most optimal for fat loss. Now, I would say for lifestyle clients, for sure. I would say when it comes to getting like a physique to the next level, we can ride that wagon for a good while, but not the whole time. Getting to a client to, and anybody here who doesn't coach competitors, all of this is still very valuable information to use for fat loss with your actual lifestyle clients as well, just so that we are all clear with that. The prep is just going to go more extreme of these things. I don't think you need to get a lifestyle client down to 95 grams of carbs a day in order for them to get their fat loss goals, unless they want to be, dick skin shredded like everybody on the stage. So going to the diet break. What I'm going to do here is I'm usually going to lower protein down to body weight. Okay. Protein's going to come down to body weight for a diet break. So let's say we've been prepping her for 10 weeks and she's down to, 141. She dropped 9 pounds. Okay. She's 141. So onto 140 grams of protein. Okay. Now, if we look at the calories when she started here. Obviously, her metabolic metabolic adaptation has occurred, right? So her baseline of calories has dropped as she's been dieting. She's been doing cardio, et cetera, et cetera. So let's just say how many calories is this? Who can do it off the top of their head? 450 calories from fats, 800 calories from carbs. That's 1,250. Okay, so she was at 1,850 calories here. So we can assume that this has dropped a decent amount. If we want to get absolutely textbook here, we can go get, a body fat test done, or one of the metabolic panels that shows you what their actual baseline calories is. I don't think we need to go that in depth. Rule of thumb that I typically go off of is I'm going to reduce, however long they're in a true deficit, I'm going to reduce their basal metabolic rate by 50 calories. Okay, so she's been dieting for 10 weeks. Going to lower it roughly 500 calories. Now I'm going to take away all of those calories being burned from cardio and stuff. So I'm going to say roughly she's down 250 calories. So I'm just going to cut it in half, right? Because the cardio and stuff isn't actually does that make sense? What I'm saying? Okay, so we're just going to go whatever that equation is, I'm going to cut it in half, and that's going to be where I refeed them to. So if it's 10 weeks, 50 times 10 is 500. I'm going to cut that in half. So I'm going to lower these 250 calories, which puts her at 1,600 calories is her new baseline. This is just something that I've done. I don't have any literature to back this up. This is something that I started doing in my own head and doing it, and it works, So you're not going to be able to read this in a book and go, oh, that's where Nick got it from. I literally just started doing random shit and it worked. So now I got 1,600 calories I want to work with. So this is 560 calories from protein. So now we have roughly 1,040 calories to tolerate. Now we want fats no lower than 40. I'll bump them up 5 grams here. So I'll go 45 grams of fat for this specific client, which gives us 405 calories from fats. So if we do 1,600, we subtract 560, we subtract 405, that leaves us with 635 calories for carbs, which would equate to about 160 grams of carbs. So the diet break macros for 2 weeks are going to look something along the lines of this. Everybody following that? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So again, with this, there is no set in stone here. This is going to be vastly different for people. This is just my initial formula that I do in my head to kind of look at things and see where they're at. Diet break does not also include us pulling back calories, or cardio, because I will reduce cardio by, I'd say, anywhere from 25 to 40% during diet break. Yeah, so if they're doing 100 minutes of cardio, I'll drop them down to 75 minutes of cardio, give or take, right? And that's kind of how I'll go about a diet break. I'll run that for 2 weeks. Then after the diet break is back in place, you could pop right back into carb cycling. You can pop right into just a consistent deficit if that's what you want to do, but I would reallocate the calories and get protein higher. The reason I'm pulling protein lower is because when protein's super high, like they are for competition prep clients, I see a lot of just inflammation happening in the gut anyways, and inflammation is going to stall some progress. So I'll pull it down to give them a little break there, so then we can usually push it right back up to those ranges and see, diet breaks, we can see digestion improve a lot as well too. Was that all good for you, Jess? Did you have another question around that, or was that all of them?
I think I had a question, just because I have never, at least from what I was seeing about carb cycling, I never saw someone make it so that you coordinate the low days with rest days. I saw a lot of people who were doing carb cycling and they just kind of let it run its course. And then I saw some other individuals who did high days actually on rest days to help optimize
for recovery.
So,
100%.
I just wanted to ask what your takes are on like all those different approaches and why you chose to stick with this one.
So so this is what I will do to start somebody on a prep. Okay. Now, based off of that context, we can go like this. We just did a diet break. Diet break was needed. We knew their recovery was shit. So why don't we put a high day on one of the rest days now? You see what I'm saying? Like, this is just like your first 10 weeks of a prep, you're going to be fine. I could drop somebody to 100 carbs and they're going to be fine. You know, their body's not going to crap out on them that fast. At the end of the day, recovery is important, but everything else being dialed in is going to aid in that recovery in the beginning more than just that. And like, the end of the day, fat loss is my main goal at first. And you're not burning as many calories on rest days. So we technically don't need as many calories, but that's not to say that I've definitely done high days on rest days. There's going to be times in prep where I 100% prefer. And this is what I'm saying. When you like kind of talk to your client and have that open communication and they go, man, like, I'm just super sore. I'm not really sleeping well. I'm waking up in the morning, I'm super groggy. Then we can easily move these at any point in time. You can go, okay, you know, recovery shit, you're having a hard time sleeping. Why don't you stack your 2 rest days back to back and do both your high days on those days this week? Then they wake up and they go, holy crap, I feel freaking incredible. They drop, and we go, cool, let's get back to work and let's see what happens. So it's not that this is the method that I choose and just wholeheartedly go to war with. Like, I won't ride this horse in the battle every single time. Like, you know what I mean? I will change it up based off of what's needed. This is just kind of like what I was doing as we were conversating about this, but you kind of have to use critical thinking as things go on and just be able to really look at what your client needs and how they're recovering, how they're optimizing and things like that. Because a lot of people jump the gun with diet break because they go, oh, my client's sore, they need a diet break. Oh, my client didn't drop a pound this week, they've been dropping a pound every week, they just need a diet break. That's not true. We can manipulate a lot of things. You can go 3 low, 2 moderate, 2 high in a row. Like I said, I've run that before with people. I've done 2 high days first and then 2 moderate days and then 3 low days. I've done it like in reverse. So I'll do 2 high, 2 moderate, 2 low. Sometimes you just kind of mess around with it and see what works the best. But I would say this is my blueprint that I start with on prep for majority of people. Cool. All right. Who else has a question? Please tell me somebody else brought some questions. Amazing. What a great call. Okay. Come on, people. Throw something at me.
Like carb cycling.
What? Jess?
Oh no, I said I'm going to get another question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I have a question. Okay, here's a good one. And I think you're going to like this one. So I have had a lot of clients who have been complaining to me recently about seasonal depression. Do you have any tips for this for clients to like handle this? Because I know when I lived in Pennsylvania, winter was rough and I don't really know how to make that better. But if you have any tips.
Yeah, so seasonal depression, more oftentimes than not, like it's a very, I don't want to say it's fully psychological, but at the same time, it is very, very psychological. And the weather plays a huge role on our psyche. If it's gloomy outside, you want to stay inside. It's like gloomy weather makes you gloomy, makes you sad, it makes you depressed. And that's why seasonal depression is things. The biggest variable in seasonal depression, in my opinion, is lack of vitamin D intake from the sun. That's going to be the number one there because serotonin production vitamin D plays a crucial role in serotonin production. And on top of this, during seasonal depression, I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10, these people's food choices aren't as good. It's really easy to have like snacky food when you're inside and it's raining and it's gloomy and you like already feel kind of meh. We'll usually psychologically seek a comfort in some sort of like food or activity, or we'll watch movies and we get snacky. So now they're eating, garbage food, and your serotonin is also produced in your gut. So now we're not optimizing the gut, which isn't optimizing serotonin production. And now we're not getting exogenous vitamin D from the sun, which is blunting serotonin production. So seasonal depression could essentially, and I don't know if I can say this without getting sued, essentially be seen as like seasonal vitamin D deficiencies, like aggressive vitamin D deficiencies, which is causing serotonin production to go off. And then it's furthering a psychological narrative in their head that they have seasonal depression every single time. There are a lot of case studies on placebo effect and how powerful it actually is. So you pair a placebo effect with somebody going, oh man, it's winter. I always get super depressed during winter. They're eating shittier food. They're probably not moving as much, not getting endorphins pumping, and they're lacking vitamin D. Usually seasonal depression is going to come about. So what I will do is I'll really get on their ass for quality food intake. Makes sense. I know you're bored, but suck it up. Eat quality foods. I'm going to go hard with vitamin D and K2. I'm gonna go ham in with their 5,000 to 10,000 IUs, especially if they're in a place that doesn't get a lot of sunlight throughout the day. I do vitamin D plus K2. It's important to note, and I don't think I noted this in an earlier coaching collective call when we touched on vitamin D. I might have, but for some reason it just registered in my head that I didn't. Vitamin D depletes K, so we want to make sure that we're doing K with the vitamin D there. On top of that, even if it's cold or not, I think making them or getting them to go outside at least 4 to 5 times a week is very crucial. We, as human beings, we have a biological connection with nature. Like whether people want to paint that as like spiritual, scientific, whatever it is, but to our literal nerves and cores in a scientific realm, we need exposure to nature in order to feel okay. And we're in an age where everybody's locked inside, everybody's on computers, all this stuff. So making sure that clients are putting down their phones, going on walks without their phones, and just being more present is going to be huge for helping them break that mindset as well, at least for me and my clients. Cool. Anybody have a question? Lauren, you're late. Give me a question. Throw me a bone here. D, you got anything? Man, you guys really came to this Q&A ready to go, didn't you? All of you guys.
I have another question.
Thank you. For the love of God.
Oh, of course. Okay, so I have also had a lot of clients recently who have been struggling with like facial acne and things like that. And so what tips would you have for that? Like I've already covered the basics in terms of like switching out your pillows and things like that, but do you have any like underlying like supplements or vitamins or things like that that can help with that?
Yep. So acne, okay, so I'll say like this, acne and the thyroid, you can pretty much treat the same. They're not a correlation, but if we look at the thyroid, whenever we see thyroid off in blood work, it's never the thyroid that's causing the issue. The thyroid is always a symptom of another issue happening. That makes sense? Something else is off that's causing the thyroid to be off. The thyroid by itself doesn't go off. So in that sense, acne is not the issue. The acne is a byproduct of another underlying issue that's going on. So if we look at acne on the skin and we go, oh, it's acne, let's treat the acne, let's get a new facial wash, let's get this. We're not getting to the underlying issue. Your skin is an organ, right? It's an organ, which means what we put in internally is going to cause inflammatory responses, and then the organ is going to have some sort of inflammatory response to it. Your gut is an organ, and its inflammatory response is what?
Digestion?
Well, bloat.
That's
Bloat, right? So if you get bloated, you don't go, oh man, let me put a Band-Aid on my stomach, or let me put a pimple cream on my stomach or a bloating cream to reduce it. No, we know I ate something or something is going on internally that's causing this inflammatory response. So we have to look at what's going on in diets, in the person's diet, that is causing these inflammatory responses, that's potentially causing them to break out in the first place. And I'll say 9 times out of 10, either dairy, gluten, excessive caffeine, or excessive artificial sweeteners are going to play here. Pretty much every single time. Some people are more sensitive to things than others. But I know I have a couple of clients, if they eat dairy, their whole entire chin and cheeks are breaking out, and they still do it. I don't know why, but they still do it. I have other people who drink alcohol and they're going to break out like crazy. So it's finding like what those inflammatory markers are that's going on in their diet. It just takes a little bit of digging. A food map of like their daily intake would be helpful there. Stress, like you said, the sleep pills and stuff. But my number one go-to for acne is always pantothenic acid. I see it pretty much happen every single time. I'll blast 5,000 megs of B5, and then you can do well, because it could be caused from a lot of other things as well. Like if they're experiencing estrogen dominance, that can also cause acne. If we have high levels of estrogen, that can also cause acne. So if you want to really get to the root of it, blood work. Right? If you really want to see what's going on with acne, blood work. If their estrogen's high, you know it's an estrogen dominant issue, and you can fix that based off everything we've talked about in the last coaching collective call with the phase 1 and phase 2 detox, anything like that. But 10 times out of 10, acne is an inflammatory response from something going on internally. So I don't know if that helps. Cool. Anybody else have any questions? You guys have a random topic that you just want me to touch on for a second and talk about? Because we can do something like that as well. More clarity on a certain topic that we've talked about.
I'm sorry, I went through like a coughing attack, so I turned off my video.
That's all right.
But could you go over what we talked about in the birth control video about the supplements that you have, like your clients who are on birth control take?
Yes. Let me open it back up real quick. So what exactly did you want me to go over with those?
Sorry. I have a client who she's been having a lot of issues. She started a new pill in when was it?
Could you turn your camera on for me? I have such a hard time focusing when people are talking to me. I can't see their face. It's just a me thing.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways, she started a new pill in October, and she's been having a lot of issues with it. And recently, she doesn't know if it's related to the new pill, but she passed out in like a couple weeks ago from it.
Oh my God.
It happened the first time that she took it, and she went to her OB, and they kind of just like brushed off her concerns.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So we haven't done much with it right now, but I wanted to get her on some of the supplements that you were talking about before, and then she's trying to get blood work done, but her doctor's not really helping her go through that route. So I'm telling her or asking her if she can go through a third party to get it done, so we can get some answers about maybe what's going on. Not sure if her passing out is related to the birth control, but like we haven't done anything else, and she hasn't done anything else like outside of like that could be causing it. So it's just a weird situation that we're kind of in right now. So not really sure.
Yeah. So my initial, actually, does anybody have initial thoughts here? No, nobody. So what are potential things that could make somebody pass out?
Like
Overexertion.
Okay. What'd you say, D?
Say
Electrolyte imbalance.
Okay, electrolyte imbalance. Jess, what did you say?
I said low blood sugar.
Low blood sugar. Okay. Blood pressure is another one that can make somebody pass out. So vitamin deficiencies can make somebody pass out. So what could potentially be happening here with this new birth control?
Oh, I got it. So if the new birth control depletes different vitamins, that can make her pass out.
It could. That's one way to talk about. What vitamins does birth control deplete?
Magnesium. Oh gosh, this is such a quiz. Magnesium. I think B vitamins.
B vitamins.
Zinc.
Zinc. Nice. Yeah. So she could be overly depleted and have some sort of vitamin deficiencies. She could have something along those lines that's also affecting like a blood pressure. It's really hard to know these types of things unless we get labs done. obviously. She can do some things right now to make sure, like she could buy a glucometer on Amazon and start taking her blood glucose after each meal and seeing if it's dropping super low or not. Could be. She could be hypothyroid, right? And then if blood pressure in itself is super low and she stands up too fast, she can easily get lightheaded and pass out. I've had that happen to a lot of clients. Natural things she could start doing right now, she could start eating grapefruit. Grapefruit actually is a natural remedy to regulate blood pressure. There's a fun little nugget for you guys. Citrus bergamot, I think. I'm gonna have to Google this real quick because I always mix up citrus bergamot with something else. I think citrus bergamot might be for cholesterol. Yeah, it's for cholesterol. Shoot, I can't remember what I mean, unless we go telmisartan on her, but we're not going to do that. Shoot, I can't find it right now, and I literally can't think about it. I can't think of it on top of my head. But so here's the thing: blood pressure, magnesium is crucial for blood pressure, right? B vitamins also crucial for blood pressure. What does birth control deplete? Both of those things. So I would stand more on the notion of it's a blood pressure issue. I don't think eating a grapefruit is going to save her, but she could start supplementing. And I would check electrolytes. D, that was a really good call there. I would make sure potassium and sodium ranges are in play. I would have her probably start like a B complex. And then I would also probably have her, or she could do Metapure. Metapure is a one-stop shop for all of that. But I would have her start with a B complex and probably like 400 mgs of magnesium a day and see if that improves. Anybody else?
No, I just think that's super interesting. I had a client who went through a couple like surgical procedures, and then after she got diagnosed with this like super rare condition, it's called POTS, and essentially it just has to do with like low blood pressure, like if you stand up too quickly and things like that. It's super interesting. I've never heard of it before, but this reminded me of that because a lot of what we had to do was like she couldn't really like stand up because she would get headaches and dizzy and third vision and things like that. So
yeah, I'm reading it right now. It's hypotension with standing for longer than 3 minutes. That's insane. Oh my God, that would be awful.
Yeah, it was super weird. Her doctors had her on like all these medications and stuff like that. But when we looked at her electrolytes and we like balanced those out and made sure that her water was in a good place and everything like that actually helped a lot more than the medication. So it just made me think about that.
I mean, I always stand on the hill of like medications are usually not going to fix what we're trying to fix. It's funny you say that because the doctors go, oh, take this, this, and this. And you go, well, why don't we look at electrolytes, water intake, quality food in the diet, making sure you have enough sodium for function and cellular function. And then she improves times 10. It's pretty silly when you think about things like that, but it's true as time. That's a really interesting case study there, Jess. So, all right, guys, does anybody have another question or like a client case study that they want to touch on or share or get some feedback on while we're here? All right, well then I guess we'll go ahead and end the call here. So appreciate you guys. We'll okay, I'm gonna stop recording this real quick. Nobody hop off yet.